Starting now, this is your local news leader, News 10 ABC in the morning.
A potential government shutdown would this weekend affect travel and people relying on food assistance programs. We'll tell you what the country and New York can expect. Amtrak riders, there are some disruptions to be aware of this weekend as some rail work gets underway. We have a live report with what you need to know. And don't worry, we have a lot of fun stuff to tell you about, including where you can raise a stein and celebrate autumn at a local Oktoberfest. Good morning and thank you for joining us. I'm News 10 ABC's Zion Decoteau. Let's begin with lawmakers in Washington who have until the end of the day to agree to a spending bill, otherwise the government will shut down come tomorrow morning. The effort is being hampered due to infighting within the Republican Party, shutting down attempts to fund the government. Yesterday, House Republicans failed to pass a short-term spending bill, with 21 of them voting against the measure that would have funded the government through October 31st. Some of the Republicans refusing to an agreement are also threatening to oust Kevin McCarthy as Speaker if he works with Democrats. The House and Senate will move on measures later today to try to get things done before tomorrow's deadline. If a shutdown were to happen, it would have far-reaching effects across the country, affecting federal workers and those who rely on federal programs. The White House estimates that 3.5 million federal workers will have to go without pay if the government shuts down, including more than 2 million members of the military. A shutdown would also affect certain federal programs that people rely on, like food assistance programs, Medicare, and Social Security. Lawmakers like New York Congressman Paul Tonko says this issue should have been resolved long ago.
We have had weeks and months to prepare for this. There's been an agreement that goes back to June. That agreement is now law.
Tonko says Republicans have decided to claw back on the principles of that agreement. For now, he says that New Yorkers should reach out to their individual congressional representatives, Representative Tonko says that lawmakers will work diligently today to try and get a deal done. In continuing coverage, a week of the trial of Jacob Klein is in the books. The jury hearing some witness testimony yesterday from the pathologist who conducted the autopsy on Philip Rabati. The jury hearing from Dr. Bernard Ng while also being shown photos from the autopsy. Dr. Ng testified that there was very deep shock force injury to the neck and detailed several deep cuts around the neck area near major blood vessels. His internal exam showed Rabati's cause of death was massive blood loss, a result of damage to the jugular vein and carotid artery, which supplies blood to the brain. Now, Klein's cross-examination focused on asking him about the time of death, how accurately he could determine that time from the autopsy. Dr. Ng going through various medical records, but ultimately saying that at one point, the exact time didn't matter so much because there is well-established video of when Rabati was last at the scene. The trial is set to resume next week, so stay with News 10 on air and online as we continue to bring you the latest on this trial. The trial in a wrongful death lawsuit against Saratoga Springs is set to begin on Monday. Darryl Mount's family filed the lawsuit after he fell from scaffolding following a police chase 10 years ago. He died several months later. The defendants from Saratoga Springs had sought a summary judgment, saying the fall was the sole cause of Mount's death. Mount's family disagrees. A judge ruling last week that the case cannot be resolved by summary judgment. The city had planned to appeal the ruling, but we have confirmed with the court that the trial will begin on Monday morning. You can stay with us on air and online for updates as it moves forward. The CDTA and the American Cancer Society are kicking off their Men in Pink campaign. The kick comes as 2 buses were unveiled. I think I've seen one of those in the streets. The buses will be on the streets to help raise awareness for breast cancer awareness. So far, the CDTA has raised more than $16,000 for the American Cancer Society. Over the past 8 years, it has raised more than $100,000 for the American Cancer Society. What a great cause. The governor announced $100 million will be made available for zero-emission school buses. It's all a part of the state initiative to have school buses sold in New York State be zero-emission by 2027 and all school buses on the road be zero-emission by 2035. The director of Clean Transportation at NYSDERA explains how far these buses can go when they are changed.
Many school buses can go up to 200 miles on a charge, where most school buses in New York only tend to run about 80 miles per day. So in most cases, school buses will have no problem completing the routes that are there now.
The $100 million is a part of the $500 million commitment. Today is Worldwide Day of Play, and a local museum is showing kids the power of science. The Children's Museum at Saratoga Springs hosting a superhero-themed day of fun later today. Activities will include making superhero masks, learning about electricity, and more. Worldwide Day of Play encourages kids to get away from their screens for a bit and have fun just playing around. Organizers say playtime has many benefits, including improved mood, social skills, creativity, and it's not just limited to kids.
And there is something to do for everyone. In fact, we always encourage everyone, play along with your child, have some fun. Take this time to enjoy and just have this unstructured moment where you can play and learn.
The event runs from 9 to noon and 1 to 4 p.m. at the museum's location on Broadway. Admission costs $12 for kids and $12 for adults, but it is free for museum members. If you're interested in learning more, you can find the full interview on our website, news10.com. Also happening today, several Oktoberfest celebrations are going on across the capital region. Starting in Albany, the annual Wolf's Beer Garden Oktoberfest returns on Broadway. That will run from 11 to 7. Meanwhile, in Clifton Park, the Druthers Oktoberfest is also set to take place, where the brewery is promising delicious German beers and Oktoberfest dishes. That's going on from noon to 10. There are also multiple minor Oktoberfest celebrations happening across the region, so head to news10.com to find one near you. It's 6 o'clock now. The United Auto Workers expanding their strike, this time taking on Ford and GM. How many more workers this latest edition has brought to the picket lines? And New York City was drenched by rainfall that flooded subway stations and roads. We have the details on yesterday's extremely wet weather.
You're watching News 10 ABC, your local news leader, with Juliana Bruno and meteorologist Matt Mackey. You're watching News 10 ABC in the morning, your local news leader.
Lawmakers in Washington and people across the country mourning the loss of longtime California Senator Dianne Feinstein, who passed away yesterday at the age of 90. Feinstein was the longest-serving woman in Senate history after she was elected to the Senate back in 1992. The Senate holding a moment of silence while flags at the U.S. Capitol have been lowered. Senator Feinstein served 6 terms in Congress, and her career was marked by many firsts. She was the first woman to serve as the mayor of San Francisco and was the first woman to chair the Senate Intelligence Committee. President Joe Biden paying tribute to the late senator yesterday.
Dianne made her mark on everything from national security to the environment, to gun safety, to protecting civil liberties. The country's going to miss her dearly, and so will Jill and I.
California Governor Gavin Newsom is now tasked with finding a replacement for Feinstein to serve the remainder of her term in the Senate. Happening now, the United Auto Workers is once again expanding the strike to more of the big automakers, this time against GM and Ford. The move sends an additional 7,000 workers to the picket line as negotiations continue into a third week. Union President Shawn Fain choosing not to expand their strike against Jeep maker Stellantis due to the company making progress with negotiations. With the latest walkouts, that brings to 25,000 the number of UAW auto workers now on strike against the United States. Well, a major storm yesterday delivered one of the wettest days in decades to New York City, Long Island, and even all the way up into the lower Hudson Valley. With dangerous flooding knocking out some subway and commuter rail lines, stranding drivers on highways, flooding basements, and even shuttering a terminal at LaGuardia Airport, Governor Kathy Hochul and Mayor Eric Adams declared states of emergency and urged people to stay put if possible. But schools were open. Students went to class and many adults went to work, only to wonder how they would get home.
I've lived here for the better part of 50 years of my life, and I've never seen anything like this. This is truly climate change. It's scary.
The deluge coming 2 years after the remnants of Hurricane Ida dumped record-breaking rain and killed at least 13 people in New York City, mostly in flooded basement apartments. Luckily, no deaths or severe injuries have been reported so far from yesterday's storm. Now, researchers say yesterday's heavy rainfall is in line with trends that stretch back decades, showing an increase in rainfall in the northern U.S. Experts at UAlbany say those trends are linked to climate change and that New York is, quote, economically vulnerable to major weather events. The New York State Messenet Operations Center produces real-time data on weather events, helping the state coordinate with emergency responses. Experts say it's necessary to provide accurate information to the federal government when asking for FEMA relief.
There were large parts of the state where we just had very little information about what happened there weather-wise. Just really basic things like how much rain fell in Irene. We didn't necessarily know that.
He says that the models predict that these extreme rainfall trends will continue to worsen. A long-time method of catching up on your favorite movie binging is now coming to an end. Get this, Netflix officially closed its DVD rental service yesterday with the final mailouts in the iconic red envelope. The company announced in April that it would end the service and has stopped taking orders on DVD.com. The first rental from Netflix was Beetlejuice, and that was sent out on March the 10th, 1998. And Netflix reached the 5 billion DVD ship mark in 2019. I had no idea that was still going on. Well, coming up on News 10 in the morning, Dean Richards has the latest in entertainment, a new horror movie that's definitely not for the kids, and a family-friendly furry fun flick for the whole household to enjoy together.
You're watching News 10 ABC, your local news leader.